We're honored to be welcomed here today by Joseph Williams, who was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, before moving to Nashville to attend Vanderbilt for both his undergraduate and his law degree. He is currently the Director of External Affairs on Governor Bill Lee's senior staff, and prior to that, he and his wife, Palmer, founded the Peacefield Group, a legal and policy consulting firm here in Nashville. His practice has focused upon upholding the Constitution and keeping all levels of government accountable to the people, and he has written extensively on issues of educational equality, equity, and on dignity and the rights of people with developmental disabilities, drawing poignant insights from the life of his sister, Mary. We thank Mr. Williams for joining us today, and we also thank Governor Lee for both his focus and leadership on criminal justice reform here in Tennessee, and for sharing his vision with us through Mr. Williams' participation at our conference today. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Joseph Williams.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me today. I want to primarily talk about first kind of my personal connection to criminal justice. And the need, as the governor calls it, to help pass reforms that create a justice system that lives up to its name. Second, I want to talk about the governor's personal connection, answer the question, how is it that we have an individual that is not an attorney, who has never run for office before, but in the morning after his electoral victory in November, when asked by the press, what is your number one priority? He said criminal justice reform, hands down. So what is it that led him to prioritize that, and what is his viewpoint and perspective on that? And then third and finally, I want to talk about how during the campaign, during the transition, in which I kind of led the criminal justice policy portfolio during the transition and now into the administration, how we are tackling this issue and our perspective. So first, I want to tell you a little bit about myself and my personal connection. I'm an attorney. My wife is also an attorney. Before going back to law school, I taught high school at Whites Creek High School here in Metro Nashville Public Schools. And then eventually I would become an attorney and do a decent amount of pro bono work and learn about what are some of the systemic obstacles that stand in the way of individuals who are trying to reenter society, trying to stay in recovery, trying to make a better lives for themselves, reconnect with their family, reconnect with their children, get good paying jobs that kind of show their dignity and worth, and so they can contribute to society. I saw some of those obstacles personally as an attorney, doing pro bono cases and working through that. My wife as well, who is also an attorney, much more brilliant of an attorney than I am, frankly. She did some work, in fact, in Metro Nashville in the Juvenile Justice Public Defender's Office while I was teaching at Whites Creek High School. To this day, obviously, she couldn't tell me which of her clients she had in her office were also my students. But suffice it to say, there were a good number of them that were overlapped. And we learned through those experiences about how is our juvenile justice system affecting lives? How is our justice system affecting lives? To what extent is our justice system working? And to what extent are there some good reforms? And over the past couple of years, whether it's through our law firm and some work in the justice reform space for some clients, or whether it was in pro bono work or on behalf of the governor on the campaign trail, of talking to public defenders, talking to district attorneys, talking to individuals who are formerly incarcerated, talking to individuals who are currently incarcerated. The governor tasked me and said, I want you to talk to stakeholders across the spectrum and learn about, what is working and what's broken and can be fixed at every stage in the process. So everything from before the crime is committed, the school to prison pipeline, the crime is committed, pre-trial, adjudication, incarceration, reentry, parole and probation. How does every step along that process, what are some reforms that everyone can agree upon? Because frankly, there are a lot. One thing that I think is uniquely special about Governor Bill Lee is that he is a firm believer, because he's never held political office before, that what far too often happens in the political and policymaking process is you just get a bunch of people around the table that already agree on everything that you're talking about, rather than getting people around the table that disagree on fundamental things to hash out why do we disagree on this pretrial reform. But what we found in that process is you get everyone around the table and they say, oh, we actually agree. We would support text message notification system, for example. There's room for debate, but there is a lot of agreement in terms of pretrial risk assessments. How can we implement reforms in pilot projects, scale them up so that we are reducing incarceration, reducing crimes committed, reducing the number of victims, and creating a more just justice system? So that's the work of our office. How did it become personal to our governor? Well, I've always often told people this on the campaign trail, and I don't think they believe me until he got into office and he's beginning to roll out some of his reform proposals. But the fact of the matter is, the governor is the governor today because he did two things long before running for office was ever on his radar. One, he mentored a young inner city at-risk youth every single day. Every single day he talked to him, but once a week at least he gathered with him, and he learned about how our education system is in need of reform. He learned about how individuals stuck in generational cycles of poverty, the obstacles they face, and that got him really interested in education reform. But then he also mentored an individual who was incarcerated here in Tennessee, and he mentored him at least once a week for several years while he was still incarcerated, and then he had breakfast with him every Thursday morning at 5:30 a.m. once he had re-entered society. And through that process, he learned about what it's like for life of someone who's committed a crime, paid a price, and then is re-entering society. And so through that process, he also got involved in justice reform work. And he realized there's a lot of individuals like the young man he mentored and like the individual who was formerly incarcerated. He realized there are a lot of systemic issues, and he had the possibility to impact through systemic reforms many lives throughout Tennessee. The governor often likes to say, no matter where he went on the campaign trail, and he went to all 95 counties at least 3 times, and many counties more than that over the last several years. And he said no matter who he talked to, no matter where they came from, they fundamentally wanted 3 things: a good school for their kids and grandkids, a good paying job, and safe neighborhoods. And he truly believes that criminal justice reform affects all 3 of those things. So he is looking at this on a multiple year outlook. He's putting together a task force that takes a look at violent crime, juvenile crime, educational opportunities for incarcerated populations. Tennessee hasn't had sentencing reform since the late 80s. Many of you in this room know that all too well. So there are a lot of things that need to be done, and some of those can be done merely with resource allocations. Over the next 3 years, Tennessee is going to be a leader in this country when it comes to educational opportunities for individuals who are incarcerated. Because you all know the statistics. I have them on the sheet of paper. I could trot them out. But you know that an individual who has access to educational opportunities is significantly less likely to commit more crimes and re-enter. That's just a fact. And the governor isn't saying, well, the government has all the answers. He's talking to Lipscomb, who has had a wonderful life program at the Tennessee Prison for Women, in which they have students enrolled at Lipscomb University who are currently attending on campus, and students enrolled at Lipscomb University in degree granting programs, taking classes together at the Tennessee Women's Prison, living and learning together. And the individuals that graduate from that program, their recidivism rate, single digits. Tennessee Higher Education Initiative is another opportunity that the governor is investing to allow them to expand, to serve more students across our state, to get degrees, to begin the educational process, partnering with nearby community colleges, to, again, set them up for success. One of the things I'm proudest that the governor is doing that I think really captures his mindset on this topic, and it was his idea. I remember to the day, 2 days after he won, he said, I want to establish a statewide volunteer mentorship initiative. And I want to be, as governor, I want to be the first volunteer to sign up to mentor someone who is currently incarcerated. And Chairman Curcio, who was just up here, was one of the legislative chairs of that mentorship initiative. We're partnering with a lot of nonprofits that are already doing great work and calling on every single Tennessean. So if you're currently in this room and you're a Tennessean, I would encourage you to go to the governor's website and sign up now to mentor someone who is currently incarcerated here in Tennessee. Because you all know this, that when you learn the stories of individuals who are incarcerated and when they have access to educational opportunities, when they have access to someone, a church, a synagogue, a community center, a nonprofit, to help set them up for success, and think about resumes, think about job interviews, think about reconnecting to their family. You know, what our office did during the transition was we asked individuals who were incarcerated, what would you look for in a mentor? And the fact of the matter is, they're looking for the same types of things all of us are. They wanted someone to discuss faith with, discuss sports with, talk about their job, talk about family. The governor, through the Volunteer Mentorship Initiative, is changing the way that our state looks at individuals. Because when we do that, when we implement these reforms, the goal is to decrease recidivism rates, decrease crimes committed, decrease the number of victims in our state, and create safer neighborhoods for everyone to flourish. So everyone can have a good school, a good paying job, and safe neighborhoods. I think one other thing that is unique, and then I'm more than happy to use the remainder of my time to field a couple questions, although my time is almost up, so maybe just one or two, is a lot of politicians at all levels often view policy problems and policy solutions through, this is going to be my priority of this year, of this legislative session. We're going to see how much we can get done, and then we're going to move on. The governor, through education reform, criminal justice reform, rural revitalization, a focus on mental health and healthcare, is saying these are the problems our state faces. These are the problems I talked about on the campaign trail to get elected, and I'm going to work on those every year in my term as governor, which means we're going to get some reforms done this year. We're going to get other reforms done next year. We may take a look at pilot projects and investment in one pretrial reform pilot may work. It might not, and we'll need to adjust and figure it out from there. But as a businessman who's never held elected office before, this governor's committed to bringing everyone around the table so all voices are heard. He's committed to taking a look at what's working and what doesn't, to ensure that our taxpayer dollars are being spent efficiently and effectively, and to ensure that what we're doing is in the best interest of every Tennessean, so we have safe neighborhoods around our state. And then he's also committed to experimenting and trying new things, thinking out of the box, having the governor mentor someone who's incarcerated, having the entire senior staff, of which I'm a part, as he said at the State of the State address, enthusiastically sign up to volunteer for this program. And I would ask you, if you're a Tennessean, to also sign up for it as well. And I'd ask you to get involved. Reach out to me. Reach out to our office if you have ideas, if you want your voice to be heard, because that's the way we can move our state forward, and that's the way Tennessee can lead the nation. So thank you so much for having me today, and thanks for listening to me on a Friday afternoon.